Good morning, everybody. It's not normally I'm sharp at this time in the morning, but here I am. Tonight with a breaking news update. Malcolm Nance would be kind enough to join us this morning. Over US Navy, political analyst, intelligence dive, US Navy.
Good morning.
I bet you this is not too early for you.
No, I'm up at 3:30 every morning.
I've seen a lot of news go by about this Iran war, and that would be that surprising. Bibi Netanyahu on 60 Minutes yesterday endorsed not only further attacks on the nuclear sites in Iran, but he's also saying that they're in the planning stages. They're already talking to each other about how they're going to execute this. And then on top of that, he's also suggesting that U.S. ground troops should be involved in this assault, which is ultimately for my mind to take, because you would think after the licking we've just gotten, this wouldn't be happening.
Is Iran over? And if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There are still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
How do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran?
You go in and you take it out.
With what? Special forces from Israel? Special forces of the United States?
Well, I'm not going to talk about military means, but what President Trump has said to me, I want to go in there. And I think it can be done physically. That's not the problem. If you have an agreement and you go in and you take it out, why not? That's the best way.
What if there isn't an agreement? Can it be taken out by force?
Well, you're going to ask me these questions. I'm going to dodge them because I'm not going to talk about our military possibilities, plans, or anything of the kind.
And I'm just trying to get at how long is it going to take to achieve that aim?
I'm not going to give a timetable to it, but I'm going to say that's terrifically important.
This has been Netanyahu's shtick. I'm 64 years old. Since I was in my 20s, Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying this very thing, that Iran is an immediate, imminent nuclear threat, that we have to deal with it harshly. And now he's gotten 2 wars with Iran. Last year's what they called the 12-day war, which I find laughable because we did not achieve any of our goals in that war. Donald Trump said these strikes, which we planned 40 years for, we built an entire class of weapons strictly for this type of attack. And we did it. And it did not yield what we wanted, to the point where we went to full-scale war again this year. There is nothing in the U.S. Armed Forces inventory except atomic bombs that we have not used on Iran. We have used everything we have, every category of weapon, offensive and defensive, has been used against Iran. We've used almost half of the weapon systems we would need to protect Asia from a China offensive. We're literally emptied out our pockets. And here we still have Benjamin Netanyahu essentially saying that Israel and the United States, admitting that they didn't achieve any of their goals: ballistic missile production, ballistic missile launches, nuclear materials, which we know are trapped underground, but the Iranians are digging out, and support for the proxy states, which is Iraq, Yemen, and Lebanon, right? Hezbollah in Lebanon. Then what exactly has happened this last 75 days? And what has happened is we gave him his fantasy twice, and have shown that they have been living in an alternate reality where military campaigns and force always succeed and dominate if you use high technology. From the U.S. intelligence community perspective, which is where I come from, I fought this battle in the 1980s. We fought the Iranians in the 80s. And the first thing we knew was the Strait of Hormuz would close. And believe it or not, at the height of the Iran-Iraq war and Operation Earnest Will and the fighting with Iraq, the Strait of Hormuz never closed, not one day, until February 28th of this year when we attacked Iran. So bottom line is this: Israel is trying to put us, not Israel, let me rephrase that. Netanyahu is trying to put America into a new box for a third phase of this war, where the United States either invades Iran, whether it's small forces that are in a focused mission to seize the nuclear materials, the underground ballistic missile centers, or he's campaigning for a full-scale invasion. But here's what you don't hear. You don't hear him saying Israel will take the Israeli army across Syria, across Iraq, right, and into Iran to support this operation.
Now, he's admitting it was America's situation is far more depleted than what before those made by Jenny yesterday, Senator Kelly on the morning news rounds. We just don't have the ammunition to go at this again. It's simply not without weakening, as you pointed out, our deterrence in China.
Yeah, well, so much for America first. I mean, this is all America alone, right, to carry out an imperialistic campaign. I'm not using these phrases because I'm an opponent of Trump. I'm using these phrases. If this were Burkina Faso or Mali, I would be using these exact phrases on a president who clearly has a mental incapacity, right? That between point A and point B, foreign policy is his mental illness. And he doesn't seem to have planned out any of this in advance. Here's a good example, Zev. As you recall, about almost 2 months ago, the USS Boxer Amphibious Readiness Group was ordered to the Persian Gulf. They left San Diego early. They bought an additional 2,500 Marines, 3 more amphibious ships, including an amphibious aircraft and helicopter carrier that was supposed to join the USS Tripoli Amphibious Readiness Group. That ship was diverted a month ago and is still in Japan, that amphibious readiness group, which indicated to us analysts that Trump had canceled all of his plans to land forces in the Strait of Hormuz Islands and Karg Island. The 3,000 airborne troops that are somewhere that are split between Jordan and Israel, that's where they're all based out of, who were supposed to be prepared for this incredible mission to jump into Iran and seize the nuclear weapons facilities, and then do what? Steal, this is not a joke, fly in or steal backhoes, excavators, dump trucks, and dig their way down 500 meters of collapsed mountain in multiple sites, not one, and actually extract what they think the nuclear materials are and where they think they are without any accurate intelligence. This is what the Netanyahu is talking about.
That's exactly what he described today. Kirby is that he's going to go in and take it. Let's say a night with these 5,000 Marines and say this was still arriving. Are they not arriving? Are they due to arrive in the next few days?
They are literally in Sasebo, Japan.
Really?
Diverted them. They were supposed to have arrived in the Persian Gulf the first week of April. And when those negotiations, when Trump pretty much declared the war over and the ceasefire in effect, they kept them in Japan. They're still 2 to 3 weeks from the Persian Gulf. They've been a month not going to the war, which means that indicates to me, right, that the United States has no serious intention of using naval and marine forces to take islands in the Strait of Hormuz. And the poor Tripoli Amphibious Readiness Group has been there for like 6 months now, right? It wouldn't even bring the Boxer in to relieve them so that they could go have a port visit in Singapore. You know, I just find more, incompetence is staggering here.
Can they even undertake this kind of mission? It seems so foolhardy, and it's because the Iranians know about this. They're not going to be surprised about any attempt to their nuclear sites. So
the Marines wouldn't go to these Marines wouldn't be used for the nuclear sites. The 3,000 airborne troops that have been sitting in Jordan for a month now, all right, the 82nd Airborne Alert Brigades and their supporting forces, they're the ones who were, when we saw them move and disappear into, split up with the special forces, over 1,000 special forces are sitting in Israel's Uvda air base and in Jordan. And then the 3,000 airborne troops have been sitting in Jordan for a month now. Those were the forces that clearly were being prepared to parachute into Iran or for land in Iran in improvised airstrips and take these sites. And I mean, you're going to need a lot more than 3,000 guys, right? I mean, we took us 100,000 men to expel Iraq out of Kuwait, and almost as many forces, if not more, just to sustain an insurgency in Iraq. So you're talking, I mean, these guys, whoever is thinking these things up, there is no strategic plan. There are piecemeal plans that are based on discussions between Netanyahu and Trump that are now, we're seeing Netanyahu right now. That video clip of Benjamin Netanyahu is designed to put Donald Trump in a public box that says, if you don't do what I just suggested on 60 Minutes, right? Ooh. Which means general American population now knows about this, then you have failed. And that means he's putting Trump, the only word he didn't use was loser in that. But Netanyahu wants a third campaign in which there is ground war with Iran, which is a population of 93 million people. It has over 1 million Pasdaran, Basji, and regular army, not even the regular army, right? The IRGC and the Basji number almost 1 million. And of course, they would make a patriotic call for everyone who can handle a rifle to come and join. There's 25 million card-carrying members of the Basji who are not trained for armed forces. But this is what happened in the Iran-Iraq war. They would besiege us on all sides. And this would look like Khartoum in 1850 or whatever it was, when only one guy got out alive.
That's exactly what they're saying. This is the public statements. Obviously, it's posture, but it's still, they're aware that this is a possibility. According to some sources, we're seeing that the IRGC is now upgraded its military-based preparedness around all the nuclear sites, as you'd expect them to. But the other thing that I'm seeing, which I think is real tell, that something quite serious is going on. The Brent crude price jumped by a significant amount, 4.5%, 4.8%. So I suppose this is a tremendous worry sign for the economy, obviously, but that also indicates that the people who watch oil are really concerned on where things.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we've already suffered a massive oil shock. But yesterday I was reading some research by Bloomberg that says, come 3 weeks from now, first week of June, we will reach stress levels of oil shock on the market. And that means it will be knives out. Every person, there will be bidding wars for physical oil, right? The gap between the price of physical oil that exists on boats, on ships, and the price between futures, like West Texas Intermediate and Brent North Sea crude, the difference is about $50 to $75, which means futures is at $100. People actually buying them physically in Oman, buying them physically in Yanbu, Saudi Arabia, they're paying $150 or more. It reached $175 a barrel for physical oil at the height of the war. What's happening now is the futures market and the physical market numbers are starting to close. And as oil is expended, but no oil is put back into the market, Bloomberg also had another surprise for us. They said by September, if conditions do not change by the first week of June, by September, every oil refinery out there will be empty. Pipelines empty. There is reserve that is physically filling these refineries, pipelines, bunkers, which are what they call those big round oil containers. They will run out by September.
I agree that that's in America.
Yeah. Oh, it's an incredible. All you'd have to do here, I'll actually find it for you. I read it yesterday and I was floored about the shortage of oil that we have right now is absolutely incredible. And Iran can hold out for months. Trump lives under this fantasy. I don't know who is telling him it's got to be Netanyahu, but it isn't the oil industry, that Iran is a day, 2 days from collapsing economically, and the people are going to rise up and the leadership will all be murdered in their beds. Have they never been to the South Asia, the Middle East? So long as there is tea, bread, coffee, right? And trade from the Turkmen border, Azeri border, Turkish border, Afghanistan, and the 6 new border crossings that open to take oil tankers out to Pakistan. Iran is not suffering. Yes, prices have gone up, maybe in some instances 20, 30%. But those people can persevere economic hardship. During the Iran-Iraq war, 10 years, losing 1 million men. They didn't break and collapse. Trump and his Western advisors who are ignorant of cultural intelligence, which is what I provide, right? I lived in the Middle East almost 40 years. I've worked and lived in the Middle East. I speak the languages, and I know they'll just have another cup of tea, and they will wait for our economy to break, which could break in a matter of the global economy could go into complete recession in the next 3 weeks to a month. And doesn't believe in any of that. He thinks his blockade has cut Iran off from everything. Well, did you know traffic between Dubai Creek, which is what they call Dubai Harbor, in Iran is doubled? I mean, anyone who can sell anything to Iran is selling basic commodities to Iran. Trump seems to think that oil is going to disappear out from the oil fields of Iran, or natural gas fields will disappear. And what Netanyahu wants is a completely different agenda from what we want. Netanyahu wants Iran in full-scale societal collapse, because he feels if they're fighting a civil war amongst each other, they won't threaten.
It's not going to happen. I mean, that's when it's fantasy. The uprising happening anywhere, no matter how many times they suggest that it's not happening.
Zeph, these people are Shia Muslims, okay? I've been to the Shrine of Ali and Imam Hussein in Karbala. I've seen them hurt themselves in order to feel the pain of the death of Ali and the assassination of Ali and the death of Hussein. They literally pound their chests like this as part of their societal protest. I've seen men flail themselves with razors. He just doesn't understand. They are not Americans. They are not Westerners. They don't behave like us. They don't think like us. They think as they have thought for 5,000 years of their society. They have been doing trade from soup to camel market to boat transfer since the story of Sinbad the Sailor was written. If you want to understand Iran or the Persian Gulf, go read 1001 Arabian Nights, the unexpurgated version by Sir Richard Burton, and you will get the stories that still happen and exist within their culture. They do not respect that they are true to their religion, and they're co-religionists in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Yemen. They think that Trump thinks I can buy them. The Saudis can't buy them, right? And they're insanely rich.
You look at the world map here, but China obviously supporting now Iran with both coordinates of Israeli targets, I heard today, and just pretty surprising to hear. But also with arms supplies, missiles, and you name it. So that's one sort of supply chain that's open to China. Trump is meeting Xi tomorrow. We'll see if that does anything to give their global positioning of this, but it's not likely they have all the cars heading into this summit. For China in particular, this is almost like a green pass to go for Taiwan. Soon will be. We're so consumed by what's going on. So you want to fight another war in Taiwan.
Yeah, but China will do it smartly, though. That's the difference. China is now the adult in the room on the global stage. Until America gets a president that is not mentally incapacitated, that is not, ancient, decrepit, and corrupt to the core. This is the single most corrupt administration in the history of the United States. And there will be an accounting for that. But China understands this. They play long ball, as the phrase is in baseball, right? They don't go for bunts. They go for long hits. And they will make you run all in circles trying to get that ball. And they will just jauntily run around the track and score their home run. We give it to them every time. We hurt ourselves economically because of literal ignorance of what the word tariff means. Literal ignorance or blind devotion to a man that who was stealing from the American public. China sits back and goes, I never thought I would see the United States act like, the communists in the great cultural revolution and eat themselves alive, right? They are as corrupt as anyone, well, here's the funny thing, right? They're as corrupt as Mao Zedong said, right? Maoism is Chinese Marxism of the farmer, not the proletariat. And they just sit back and they watch America, and they see that this decentralized government that is trying to be a totalitarian dictatorship just can't get its act together because democracy refuses to comply.
And it is kind of, it's like a wish list that she's getting. It's getting absolutely everything he wants. Like they go to Taiwan and just say it's mine. No one will blink an eye because no one there. Even if we want to blink an eye, we couldn't do anything because we don't have any arms left over from our, recent incursion, as he calls it, excursion to Iran. I mean, it's not going to happen. But then you go to Russia on the other side as well. I mean, you saw some of this yesterday of the military parade with the weekend. I mean, you wrongly accused of the people who were reading them up very well. This is not a typical victory parade. This is not what it looks like. There's tanks, there's hardware, whole thought of that.
Hey, hold up. They had some tanks. They had some T-34s from World War II. And those may have been part of the tanks that were sent back by Laos in 2022 when they asked for military equipment to be returned to Russia that had been loaned. I'm not joking. They probably